Hello, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Glosso America YouTube channel and the show, which we know that you love. So hit like and subscribe, turn on your notifications, and let's get after it. Hi, hello, and welcome to your favorite average to good podcast. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Meola and not Charlie Davies. Apparently, Tones, too much sun, too much dehydration, too much emotion from Chuck. He couldn't rally the energy to show up and face us ultimately. But how are you doing? Post
good.
US Guatemala, because we come off of these long watch alongs, so I feel like there's a lot of raw emotion attached to it. Now we've had a night to sleep on it. How are you feeling about the result?
Yeah, look, I'm happy for the group. Obviously, getting to a final is incredible, especially for a lot of these, we'll call them younger national team players with lesser international experience. This is a big moment for all of them. It's a big moment for Pochettino. Of course, we sit and we break down who played well, who didn't play well, what the substitutes look like, how a goal went in, whatever. In the end, and as we put the stats up, in the end, there's only one stat that matters, right? It's at the bottom of the screen, 2-1, and you move on to a final. You saw, and we'll get into the Mexico game, these games are scrappy, man. They're not like free-flowing. The play is broken up all the time. We've had the fortune of being involved in these types of games in Concacaf, and no, it's not always the prettiest, but you just have to be effective. And we said that before the game. I think every one of us said there's going to be some CONCACAF in this game tonight, and there was a little bit of that for sure.
Yeah, and I echo those sentiments, especially with the ability to grind it out and Tim Ream said something similar after the game. We'll get into his comments a little later in the show. Figuring out a way to win, right? That's a hallmark of a good team too. And he also mentioned something about fighting. Like the previous U.S. teams are all about fighting and grits. And now I'm paraphrasing him a little bit, but he's right. They did have those. We did have that when we played as well, Tones. And so they found a way to do it. Did we want it to be better in certain facets of the game? Of course, we have expectations that this team is capable of more, and I don't think that's wrong of us or any other people watching it, fans, pundits alike, to want a little bit more, given what we've seen from this team so far. So, again, though, in the final against Mexico, let's talk a little bit of Mexico, because we have a big final happening on Sunday, July 6th in Houston. Thankfully, it'll be covered, so there'll be no talk about it being too hot. Maybe still some cooling breaks, because that's been throughout the tournament, but ultimately a nice controlled environment, which will be important. Mexico, this is what's kind of scary about Mexico. Yes, they're known for especially when we played, keeping the ball and creating chances and doing their thing. This Mexican team has been excellent defensively, Tones. They gave up 2 goals in their first game of the tournament to Dominican Republic. Probably in their eyes, very preventable goals. Since then, all 4 games since, haven't given up anything. And I think that is something they're taking a lot of pride in, especially for Javier Aguirre, who's now his 3rd time in charge of Mexico. They have a really nice identity on both sides of the ball, and I think it took a little while for Aguirre to get there, but now this team is starting to really find its groove, and that could be a bad omen for the U.S. potentially. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, and I think that's what Aguirre was brought in here to do. Give him some stabilization, right, in this group, because we talk about Mexico over the years. It's been the same story, right? They've always had good players, even in what some people called this downtime over the last 3 years or so, right? Where this is the worst Mexican. No, they've always had good players. They just haven't been stable in the way that they've done things. And the only constant, it seems like, is change of manager, right? And Aguirre comes in, as you mentioned, 3rd time. He knows the federation. He knows what it means. It's an important hire for them. I still think, even after the Nations League, they're still trying to establish themselves as the back to the best in CONCACAF without question for them. Because, look, it was the U.S. for a long time. Canada was surging after Copa America, right? And is Canada the team? Mexico's here saying, you know what? No, we're the team. We're still the team. Truth be told, last night I thought first half I didn't think Mexico was going to win the game. I thought Honduras was the better side, and then the quality in the second half of Mexico showed through. And Obviously, they get a goal from Jimenez, and he does this time and time again. You give him an opportunity. He's sort of the, I don't want to say the hero, but he's the guy that they lean on in the end to get things done. But Aguirre has done a really good job. Probably Jimmy has done such a good job defensively. It probably is taking away from some of the attacking flair that we've seen over the years, because it was always about attack and have the ball and get forward and numbers and put you under pressure all the time. And, how many Mexico games did you play? You feel like you're underwater playing the game sometimes, It's not that team, but it's equally as effective as any team we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and there's been some adaptability that we've seen too. Most notably, their captain Edson Alvarez moving from the defensive midfield spot down into center back right now, which and finding himself in different areas to be kind of a deep line playmaker. But the higher he is up the field, he does a nice job of joining attacks late. So wherever he sets up, obviously the U.S. got to keep an eye on him. Now, before we get into more of the players from Mexico that have been playing well, let's give some context here. Mexico have won the Gold Cup 9 times. The U.S. has done it 7 times. They've played against each other in the final. U.S.-Mexico in the finals happened 7 times. Mexico have won 5 of those 7, Big Tones. But the last one was in 2021, just to give everybody a reminder. That was when we had our quote-unquote B team, and Mexico had their full team. The final was in Las Vegas, and Miles Robinson scored an added extra time, 117th minute, to give the U.S. a 1-0 win off of a set piece. So it's kind of setting up. The last time we won a Gold Cup was very similar situation. And I think Mexico comes into this one maybe a little bit better than they were back in 2021. Here's a fun fact. Only 2 players from that 2021 Gold Cup roster are on this current roster. Matt Turner, who was man of the match for that final, and Miles Robinson, who maybe should have been man of the match for that final since he scored the game winner. That's it. Everything else has been a lot of turnover. But again, there was no Christian Pulisic in that final. No Weo, no McKennie, like none of our big dogs. No Dest, no Robinson. So we got a result against a tough Mexico team. Can we do it again? That's going to be the big challenge for the guys. Mauricio Pochettino. Speaking of Mauricio Pochettino, his first loss with the U.S. was against Mexico in Mexico 2-0 in a friendly. And we have a few of our players that were in that game playing in this roster as well. So we'll see if he can totally redeem himself ultimately, Big Tones. Now, there is one player that I do want to focus on with Mexico. 16 years old. Gilberto Mora has been unbelievable, right? He had a nice assist to Raul Jimenez last night.
He's good, man.
Very good. And his movement is excellent. I mean, he just looks, in some ways, we'll probably have Diego Luna as somewhat of a comparison, even though Diego's a little bit older, but just this fearlessness when he's out on the field, just trying things, making good soccer decisions, good movement off the ball. I'm really been impressed with a player of his age having that type of stature. And we could argue he's one of the best players from Mexico on the field last night, leaving the assist aside. And he's starting because Luis Chavez tore his ACL in practice. Now, Luis Chavez was probably Mexico's best player at the 2022 World Cup. So that must have been a bit of a concern, but Mora stepped up and has been excellent in his time on the field, Big Tones.
Yeah, Chavez is going to be a big miss if he can't make the World Cup because, as you said, he's been one of their stalwarts. Yeah, but this is Mora's an exciting young player. I think you said fearless. I think that probably is the best word to describe him. Look, I suppose I'm chuckling because you and I have kids, right? When you're young, like there's you're young and dumb, right? Like you don't know what you don't know, right? And if you don't know that you're getting into bad situations when you're dribbling at somebody or trying a specific pass, and there's not enough people. There's not enough people yet in your life that have told you, hey, don't do this because it might result in this, like you're just going out and doing what you did probably when you were 8, 9, 10 years old sitting in your backyard, right? So that's the beauty of young kids. But yeah, he looks to be a really good player. 77 minutes and he's played a couple games, I think 90 minutes. He's been by arguably the all the pundits that cover Mexico, when you just read online just the comments about him, there's been arguments that he's been the best player in a few games for them, right? So But Jimmy, this is an example. I think I've mentioned it a couple times. When you take a young player or a player with lesser experience on your national team, it's so much easier to put one player in with the full team and see how they react.
Yeah.
Then, like, sometimes we have like a January camp, right? With
Right.
all these guys that are just new to the international game, don't have a lot of experience. And then you throw them all on the field together. And then you're expecting it to be fluid and you're expecting the game to look good. And it just doesn't happen, you know? And clearly this kid is special in the way that he plays. And we're getting to see him now, but it's just a lot easier to integrate guys one at a time, two at a time, instead of putting all of them on the field. That's why, honestly, what the U.S. has done to get to a final is a pretty good haul from Mauricio Pochettino here. Again, we can get into, you know, the lack of changes, and those are all just opinions. In the end, these two teams have been the best throughout this tournament, and they'll square off on Sunday, and we'll sit here and chat about it and go crazy about it because it is Mexico, and I don't care if it's a Gold Cup final, if it's a friendly, if it's
it
you're playing in the backyard, it doesn't matter, right? Like, this is the game you want to play in.
Yeah, I think what's been interesting about Mora's integration into the starting 11 for Mexico is because he's a creative player and he's seeing the game in a certain way. I think that's elevated the game of some of his teammates, Alexis Vega in particular. We've seen a lot of good combination play from them, and maybe they're on the same type of wavelength that Vega didn't necessarily have with some of his other teammates. And I think that's only brought up the best of Vega, which again, I'm speaking out as this almost neutrally, but as a U.S. fan, that makes me nervous because Vega's a good player. And when he's got confidence, he plays at even another level. And when you got Jimenez now scoring a bunch of goals, he scored in the semifinal last night. But if we go back to the Nations League, okay, Raul Jimenez scored 2 against Canada in the semifinals. He scored against Panama in the final and helped them win the Nations League. Clearly some trust that's coming from Javier Aguirre to Jimenez and to everybody else, right? There's a nice project going on here. And just as a reminder, I was part of the 2009 Gold Cup team. I was hurt for the final, but Aguirre was leading Mexico. It was in New York. It was a hot day. It was 0-0 at half. We lost 5-0, Big Tones. That one hurt. I was up in the stands with John Hackworth doing some scouting, and it was pretty one-sided, and we fell apart there.
You guys didn't scout the right thing at halftime.
Well, we tried to give as much information as we could because you could see it coming, but it just wasn't enough. And once Mexico got 1, that turned into 2 and 3 very quickly, and then we just couldn't. We're chasing shadows at that point. And that was the tournament. Do we have time for a story? I got a little story time. So that's the tournament where Javier Aguirre, the current manager of Mexico, kicked a player. Do you remember that in the first game of that 2009 Gold Cup? The ball was going out of bounds, and he just stuck his foot out and kicked a Panamanian player, I believe, and he got suspended all the way to the final. So in Chicago, now I got a concussion in the quarterfinals, so I was out, but I was still with the team. In the semifinals, we beat Honduras, and on the way to New York, we shared a plane with Mexico to go fly to the final. So me and Stu Holden were this is early Twitter days, by the way. Me and Stu Holden were kind of joking around that Aguirre is going to be on our flight. And so I tweeted, we're sharing a flight with Mexico. I hope Javier Aguirre doesn't kick me when I go past him in the aisle. And then I turned off my phone. Listen, that blew up. It was like my first viral tweet, Big Tones. And it led SportsCenter down in Mexico that a U.S. player, U.S. player would be mocking the Mexican national team coach. And I mean, that's a pretty funny joke, all things considered. It did not go down well, and I had to go on TV and apologize, and it sucked because I didn't even get to play. It's not even I could back up my words, so I threw my teammates to the slaughter.
But who did you have to apologize to? Who did they make you apologize to?
I didn't. I mean, I understood where they were coming from, and it was more of like a clarification, I should say, than an apology. Like I went on TV. It was to SportsCenter down in Mexico, ESPN Deportes or Fox Deportes or whatever. And I just said that, hey, listen, that was clearly a joke, probably not a well-timed joke. I didn't mean to insult anybody, and it just sucked because I couldn't go on the field and actually do something about it, right? And I think Aguirre probably used those words to motivate his team. And so, not to say I'm taking full responsibility for the 5-0 thrashing in the 2009 Gold Cup final, but I don't think I helped the cause.
Hold on. So it's like the triple whammy. You want one, you couldn't play. 2, you were scouting something, and halftime scouting didn't work. 3, you lit up the Mexican fans like by making this bad joke. Like this that's at least 3 of the goals that you're at fault for. You
By
need
the
to
way,
step on the field.
I take offense to that. That's not a bad. It was a really funny joke, by the way. It was not.
I just watched it, Jimmy, and I'm like, oh, what was he thinking, man? He tried to...
I think that's what everybody
man.
was thinking. But that's when you don't turn off your phone or get on a plane before you make a tweet, because at that point, I had my phone turned off for 4 hours and it just built up steam. And by the time I got off the plane, my phone had melted because of all the messages I was getting. Yeah, good times. Anyway, wanted to share that story. So Aguirre obviously has some experience beating the U.S. in a Gold Cup final, and I'm hopeful that we can reverse that. It would be amazing, a little 5-0 thrashing with our guys. Do you think there's anybody else we need to be paying attention to? Because Cesar Montes, a beast on set pieces, got 3 goals so far in this tournament. I thought Araujo was very good on the right side. He dropped in a dime to Jimenez Raul's head in the first half that should have been scored. They look good right now. And do you see any vulnerabilities where you think we could potentially get at this Mexican team, Tones?
Yeah, I think the fact that they sit back so much gives you opportunity to have the ball, but they want the ball too. Can we get at them on a counter? The one thing over the last couple of years in the last 3 Nations Leagues, I should say, we talked about the lack of speed with this group. I don't know that we have guys to necessarily to exploit it with that. We certainly don't have wingers, which I think is a problem that we're not exploiting in behind the backs. Julian Araujo on the right-hand side, he's not a guy you're going to take for speed. He's pretty fast. But Montes and Vasquez, look, they've gone to guys that are going on the bench that are Jorge Sanchez, who we've seen play against the U.S. and seen in these tournaments. How often? Like, they've gotten past all of these guys. Israel Reyes as well. So this whole thing with Edson Alvarez building out of the back in between the 2 center backs, I wonder how Pochettino deals with that, because we don't really pressure with 2 players. We pressure with 1. So I wonder even if we'll see it. Generally, the defensive midfielder drops in during the build-up when you have 2 to make it 3 against 2 to build out. We don't do that. How does Aguirre deal with that? Or does Pochettino change and say, yeah, we like Edson Alvarez dropping back in through build-up, so we're going to pressure them with 2 players. That'll be interesting. But with regards to their team, I think we know their team. Alexis Vega is a really good player. Alvarado on the right-hand side is – look, Huerta's not playing, is coming off the bench. Right. He came off the bench last night. He gets spot starts now under Aguirre. He's been a guy over the last couple of years that we kind of looked at, man. He's got something special. Right. We see him in Leagues Cup in his club team. We saw him in the Liga MX All-Star games. We saw him obviously with the national team. He's Aguirre with this different mindset has gone away from starting guys like that. So it'll be interesting. I don't know that I didn't look at the change patterns yet, Jimmy. I don't know if you have with regards to changing from game to game. We obviously haven't changed a bunch, but Aguirre seems to be happy with this group and the way they're going.
Yeah, there's only been a couple changes in the outside back position. Chavez started last night, but Gallardo usually starts as due to yellow card accumulation.
Yeah.
Araujo's been in and out. Alvarado, though, who's in for Chino Huerta at the right kind of wing position, he works. He doesn't have any goals or assists, no goal contributions, but he's gonna make it a tough ask. And I wonder, though, if maybe you see Chino Huerta come in because he is so dynamic, and if Aguirre thinks, hey, we can get at that left back position for the U.S. Yes, he's talented going forward, whoever our options are, but defensively there's some vulnerability there. I wonder if Mexico makes any adjustments there. And then I'm really curious, if we're talking about matchups, Alexis Vega up against Alex Freeman is going to be an awesome matchup for Freeman, and I'm curious if he can put Alexis Vega in his back pocket. That's what we're hoping. That's the dream. And then Raul
Jimenez
be
reversed too, right?
It could be 100%. This could all go the other way. But Raul Jimenez versus Tim Ream and Chris Richards is going to be a nice test. Edson Alvarez is going to sit deep at times, right? But then join that attack late for Mexico. Can we get around him to limit his influence? And obviously, if Mora starts once again, the young 16-year-old, can we? I mean, listen, Honduras basically did what they should do. They got 3 really hard tackles on Mora in that first half yet last night. And actually Mora made a mistake about 5-6 minutes into the game that led to a shot for Honduras. And the kid just bounced back, right? And was unfazed and figured out a way, especially got that assist in the second half. I'm just really impressed with his game. So can we get around to him, stifle his confidence a little bit? Obviously, we're going to have our own questions that we're going to ask of Mexico. Can they slow down Luna and Tillman? Can they do enough to slow us down? This is going to be a great game, a great matchup. And I love the test that this is going to provide for our players, because it's going to be this consistent flow where maybe we didn't have to manage that type of situation, right? And I think we walk into this as a clear underdog. Would you agree with that, Tones? Or at least that's the way we should be looking at it, because I feel like we thrive a little bit more in that mentality.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned Tim Ream's comments, I think they've kind of been underdogs, maybe outside of the dressing room.
Yeah.
For a majority of this, coming into this tournament. When I say underdogs, I just mean not that they're not going to win individual games, that they're not going to win the tournament, right? That they're not going to advance very far. And I hold my hand up. I thought the end of the road would have been if they saw Canada, or when they saw Canada and Mexico, I said, because I just thought those teams were better suited. Obviously, we've done better than Canada, and we'll see if we can do better than Mexico. So, yeah, it'll be a challenge. Look, it's Mexico. As much as we don't want to lose to Mexico, Mexico certainly doesn't want to lose to the U.S., and they've got to see sort of blood in the water that this is not a full U.S. team. There are some familiar faces that they're used to seeing that are not there, and I would think that they're saying themselves, "Hell yeah, we can win this game." No doubt about it, and we're going to win this game.
Whew, it's going to be a good one. We're going to take our first break of Call It What You Want. When we come back, we're going to hear from Mauricio Pochettino and some of his press conference from last night. Do not go anywhere. Keep it right here. You spin a record, we crush the globe. Two hills click, then must have moved. Boogie on there like it's nothing new. Got a real good feeling, it's all up there.
Today, do you think that was a sport, 2 team playing and doing a spectacle? No. You play for something more. You play for emotion. You play for be happy, be sad. I saw players of the Guatemala crying. I said, you are in the good way. I said, congratulations, because you are in the good way. That is the way that we need to feel. And our fans need to feel the same. It's not to come here and to enjoy you of the spectacle. And if you lose, nothing happen. Yes, happen a lot. Things happen because you play for your pride. You play for many, many things that I think I cannot tell you tonight. But I think it's good for our player. Because when we talk about culture, that is culture. To see your team, how fight, how come here, and how the fans behave. That is an important thing that we need to learn here in this country.
All right, those are the words of Mauricio Pochettino following the big 2-1 win over Guatemala. And he basically speaking of his admiration, Big Tones, for how Guatemala was reacting, how they got supported by their team, and showing respect ultimately, and how he would like to see the U.S. have a little bit more of that, which triggered our very own Charlie Davies last night. We got this information secondhand. We got it from Paul Tenorio, but ultimately the message was the same. Now that we get to hear from Mauricio Pochettino, I get where he's coming from. I think maybe Charlie got a little bit more emotional than he should have, but I'd like to have that conversation with him in person so he doesn't think I'm talking smack behind his back. Your thoughts on now that you've seen Pochettino's his words, or listened to his words? Yeah,
I didn't think the words were terrible last night when Tenorio said them to us. Just the last line, that when you're telling fans how to react, I don't agree. I know what he's trying to say. I know he's saying, we hopefully can bring this passion, but we've been seeing this for 100. This is age old. I've been seeing this probably longer than most of the people in our comments were alive. So, I get where Charlie's emotion came from last night, and I have no problem with his emotion. For me, if Pochettino takes out the last line, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But me personally, this is just a personal thing. I don't tell fans how to cheer, what to say, how to do it. I've always been the guy. I'm just happy you're buying a ticket and coming to see the guys play, right? That's been me. And then you go there, you bought the ticket. Of course, there's a line you don't want to cross, but I think people understand that. And you go there and do and say what you want. I just don't think it's a place for me to tell them how to cheer or Pochettino to tell them how to cheer. But I don't think that was his point watching it. I think his point was that he's talking bigger picture about the game and about the passion of the sport that we love. And look at all of these countries. And we've got this summer of soccer here. We've seen it, man. Look at the passion at the Club World Cup level. And we've seen all of this stuff. So not terribly, I'm not offended by anything Pochettino said. I think he was, maybe there's Jimmy just slightly a little bit lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
Right, with him getting his point across. But yeah, I mean, I'm just happy he won the game. Like that's the part that means the most to me. And
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Well, speaking about the game, we also took a deep dive into substitutions last night. We were all quite surprised that Tyler Adams had been taken off, but apparently there was a bit of a hamstring issue. We wondered if there was an injury that would make a lot more sense. But he got taken off. I guess he had felt a little something against Costa Rica. It just felt, I don't know, in some ways, you always want to be thoughtful about your players and where they are and how they're feeling. I with 10 minutes left to go, and not to say I want to ever risk it, but it just felt like, wow, if you're really worried about his hamstring, I guess I just want to play devil's advocate here, Tones. If you're really worried about his hamstring, that feels like more like a 60th minute type sub. Like 80 minutes, backs against the wall. We can't get any possession. We're under it from Guatemala. That timing just felt interesting. Now, of course, Tyler could have raised his hand and said, hey, I don't want to miss this Mexico game. I've kind of pushed it to the edge. Then fair play. But I just thought if they were managing an injury, either don't start him or take him out and give him 45 minutes. It just felt like it was in the middle of the moment. So maybe he raised his hand. I don't want to get into too much the he said type stuff, but yeah, at least there was a reason for why he came out, because it felt like that was the biggest head scratcher of the substitutions last night.
Well, that's why I said in that post-game show, right? Like the substitution doesn't make sense. I'm, looking at it, but let's wait to see if there's something else. And I don't know exactly what it is, but to your point, for me, if a player it raises his hand, I think you got to get him off the field.
Yeah, you got to get him
right. I don't know that.
I don't know if he did that or not, though.
I have no idea. I'm just saying in general, like Jimmy raised in. What's wrong, Jimmy? My hamstring, man. I'm like, damn, he's in the middle of the field. We're weathering a storm. I'm like, meanwhile, I was already waiting to take Jimmy Conrad out. I just needed a reason. I'm going to take him out. His hamstring. I'm only joking. I didn't need much of a reason. No. But yeah, just in general, like you get those guys off the field, and keep in mind, what are we? 5 games into this tournament, right? Yeah, 5th game into this tournament. And we talked about the lack of subs. Somebody's going to feel something. And now you're weathering the storm. Can I kill a minute and a half by making this substitution and just give my guys a break and maybe get some information out to the field that I need to get out, whatever it is. But yeah, that one seemed strange. And that's why I was a little bit hesitant in the post game last night. And I said, let's just wait and see if we hear anything, and we might hear something down the road, because the one thing we've seen from Tyler over the years, unfortunately, over the last couple of years, there's been some injuries. There was the back injury, right? And, back and hamstring are really, really related to each other with regards to movement and all of that stuff. So I'm always, with those things, we question them, but I just have inherently, I'm always in a wait and see mode if there's something else. I mean, there's some that obviously you look at a guy's playing poorly and you're like, oh, we got to get this guy off the field, and make a change here. My change last night, the thing I was most surprised about last night, when you started to feel, when we were starting to be under it a little bit, right? Started to feel some pressure. I think there's a time where you stop the rhythm by making a substitution. Right. You stop it by, when I mean literally stop, you stop the game and your guys take their time getting off the field. This isn't like MLS where you have to run off field, still international football. So you can take another 10 seconds and then you can make some adjustments and bring somebody in. Like I felt like we were a little bit late with that. But what we are seeing from Pochettino is he's not wasting subs at halftime. Like he's okay. how many we watch? I'm sure everyone that's watching our show and commenting, they watch games every weekend. I almost feel like every game there has to be a sub at halftime. I'm refreshed these days when I see a manager say, okay, this guy didn't play great, but he's still part of the plan I put together for the whole week. Let me give him another 10 or 15 minutes. Now, if it's untenable and the guy's terrible in the game, I get it. You have to make a sub. But he has shown us, Jimmy, that he's not that guy right now. He's not the guy that has a quick trigger to pull somebody out if they're not playing well. And plus, he's seeing guys. He's still seeing. So I think we're learning enough. We know Pochettino doesn't like to make changes game to game, right? Like we figured that part out now. So that's where I kind of think we are with Pochettino at the moment.
Okay, so let's talk about a few other comments that we heard in the post game. This one was from Diego Luna, which I appreciated. Obviously, he's coming in man of the match, 2 goals, absolutely buzzing. 2 very well taken goals, by the way, and he helped hit the switch to the point of attack on the first one, which kind of set everything in motion. It was a nice catalyst for that play. He said this, Diego Luna, I think we need to hold the ball more, be better on the ball in those moments under pressure. It's new for a lot of guys to play in environments like this. I think just being better under pressure and in moments like that, and that's something we can build off of. This is a great example for what's to come, probably on Sunday in the final. I love that quote because there's a self-awareness there, whether he's reiterating what the coaching staff told him after the game or whether he's recognizing that himself. There's still a self-awareness coming from somebody that we have to be better in those moments. That's my biggest ask. We were talking about it in the first half. Same thing against Costa Rica. If we're under it a little bit, and then once we win that ball, that is the moment that the times that we got ourselves out of pressure against Guatemala, we won the ball. They come in hard with their immediate pressure because they have to, right? They're down 2 goals. They're chasing the game a little bit. And then if we can play that one pass, and then that next pass has someone obvious to play to, and then we can unlock that immediate pressure, teams won't be able to stay with us. But we kept playing into that, or we turn it over, or our spacing wasn't right. And that's a little bit of my concern. If we're getting into the weeds about this, is that when we win the ball, if our lines are collapsed on top of each other, we have no angles because we're like 2 yards away from each other. Where are we going to play? And then Ajiman's up there by himself in a 2v1, potentially 3v1 situation, and it makes it hard to try to always try to, or we're always just putting them into the corner, and that becomes a 50-50 ball. Now, Ajiman's pretty good at winning those balls into the corner, so maybe we should loft a few more of those in there. But I thought our lines were too deep. It's a Diego's quote. We didn't do a nice job of connecting those passes when we were under pressure. And that's what I want more of from Diego and Tillman and anybody that's in central midfield. That's part of your role and responsibility. No matter what level you're playing at, we need you to hold the ball in transition, especially when we're under pressure and the other team is starting to get a grip of the game. And that's an area where we need to evolve. And we're definitely going to have to figure that out against a good Mexico team who are and have always been, Tones, I've always been really impressed with how collective they are when they press together as a group. They allow you to pass into certain regions, and then they trap you, right? And then they're coming. And if you don't have answers for when they're coming, and it's okay to hit one into the corner if you've got nothing, but it's better than trying to squeeze one in there because that's exactly what they want you to do. So this is going to be a really nice test for our young team to figure out and solve problems against a very organized Mexican team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You're going to have to play out of pressure. And the answer isn't dumping the ball forward, especially when you are that deep. I think that's, in a lot of times, if you just want to relieve one bit of pressure, that's okay. But when you do that, you've got to step your team up the field. And I think that's what we maybe didn't do well last night. Then, of course, you need somebody to hold the ball. You got to get players close to it. But they were pinned back for a little while. And if you go back, I watched about 20 minutes of the second half this morning. Before I was on the morning footy show. And there were moments where you thought, okay, we just get the ball. And within one pass, it was a pass that a guy had to stretch for, couldn't get a first good touch. And that was the moment you thought, okay, if you put 2 passes together, then you can get into the next sequence, right? But you think about it, and I always look at it from a defensive standpoint, right? And because you win the ball, and now you start to go forward, and in the first 1 or 2 passes, you lose the ball. And then what do? You come back. And now you do that 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. What do you end up doing when you win the ball? You don't run forward anymore, right? Because you're like, man, we can't hold the ball. May as well just stay here. And then it's like a snowball effect in a game and you see it every week from teams. But also, I think we don't give enough credit sometimes to the opposition and the other manager and the other team that are also making adjustments during the game, right? They're saying, okay, if you're Guatemala, you're like, man, we just got our backsides whooped for 20 minutes here. We got to make a change. And now you change something tactically. Now the other team's got to adjust, right? So there's so many things that go on in a game, and you're seeing these things play out in real time. It's like you just have to adjust to everything. And I think as you play more of these games, you learn that stuff, and that's kind of what Diego is alluding to, right? A younger group that hasn't been in this situation, and we're learning from this.
Okay, so off of that, it's a nice segue into Tim Ream. He had a couple quotes, but I'm going to read the first one, which plays into what you were saying, Big Tones. Tim Ream said this: as much as everyone wants to dominate games for 75 to 90 minutes, you can't anymore. There's always going to be moments in games that the other team has a little bit of a spark and a jump. Obviously, with the number of their fans, they get more, and that's okay. We just have to figure out how to weather that storm. It, of course, spurred them on to push and fight. They had nothing else to lose, right? So yeah, I mean, that all makes sense. Where I guess our concern is, as this group of this particular group of players grows together and has to face a stiff test against Mexico in the final, this has to be sorted out. I'm not expecting them to dominate 75 to 90 minutes, but it's in those moments where we are under pressure, or we do have a moment of where we just need some quality. We need some focus in that key moment to make sure we can keep a ball, because then it becomes a domino effect, like you're talking about, that snowball, that vicious cycle where, okay, well, we're just going to lose the ball anyway. I'm not even going to make a run anymore. Then you start thinking about all these other things, right? Big Tones, you're like, man, it's hot out here. when you're tired and then you're not connecting passes and things aren't really going your way, all of a sudden you start thinking about all types of different stuff. Man, it's hot. Now, why isn't the guy stepping to the ball? You're trying to solve problems, but all these other things start to factor in. It's kind of funny how the brain works.
But it's contagious, right? Like on the field, what's the reverse of it is when things are clicking well, you're like, holy cow, everybody's on the same page tonight. Everyone's got a great first touch. Everyone's going forward. The movement is good. There's a flip side to that too, right? And I think we got spoiled in Champions League final to see one team completely dominate for 90 minutes. The ebbs and that chart we show, I think it's like crazy sometimes. You have where who's had the momentum in the game and all that. Yeah. But it shows a lot. We showed one last night where literally it was, I think it was at halftime, right? We showed first half of the first 22 minutes was all US. Right. And then the next part of it was all Guatemala. Like there's ebbs and flows in the game. And it's, like I said, it's contagious. And it seems like it runs through your team like a flu sometimes when you start losing the ball. And on the reverse side, when you win the ball. Yeah,
it's interesting too, because this is definitely a tangent, but I think it plays into this. I remember when Robbie Rogers was playing with the Columbus Crew, and he was playing with Guillermo Barros Schelotto. Schelotto, listen, everybody. That dude was sick. He was so good. And I remember Robbie Rogers had his best ever year professionally when he was playing with Schelotto. And I talked to him about it after a game. I said, well, listen, when Schelotto has the ball, Robbie Rogers can run with 100% purpose because he knows he's going to get the ball, right? And it's gonna, and if it doesn't get there on the first pass, somehow it's going to get to Robbie, so Robbie can run. But if you're in a situation like you're talking about, and all of a sudden, man, I don't know if we're going to make that pass, or if Robbie wasn't playing with Schelotto, right? You're like, I'm not going to run maybe with that same type of intent and purpose and with that hunger, knowing you're going to probably get on the end of something, as opposed to that, I'm hoping maybe, or God, if we give the ball away, I'm going to have to get back and defend. And now I've taken that risk that I maybe shouldn't have taken. And so you start thinking about all these other things, and then your line gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then it looks like the last 10 minutes against Guatemala last night. And that's where you need not only your leaders to step up and make sure the spacing's right, but you also need your leaders to get on the ball. And then we did a pretty decent job. I don't want to take anything away from like drawing fouls. We did a nice job of drawing fouls, slowing the game down, taking the air out of it. But really, we could have killed Guatemala off. Anytime we broke that pressure, we had control of it for a little while until they could regroup, right? And then we gave a ball away that was cheap, and then all of a sudden they got momentum again. And that's where we have to have that maturity to solve problems. I thought Mexico was excellent at that last night. Yes, Honduras was good in the first half, but once Mexico got that 1-0 lead, dude, Aguirre made some subs to make it more defensive, and Honduras had nothing for the last 20 or 30 minutes. Nothing of consequence, I should say.
Yeah, I told you I was on that morning footy today, and I haven't been able to look it up, but Nico Cantor said to me, he asked me the question about managing the game at the end. And he said from 85th minute on, Jimmy, he had the U.S. connecting only 3 passes in the game.
That speaks to what we're saying.
Yeah, and I'm sure we know Nico. He does all that homework, right? So, but that either way, it's a low number, and it's far too low. And I wrote down. I told you last night. I wrote there's 2 ways to kill off a game, right? Some say I put another defender on. I change my formation. I go to 5 in the back. I put it in. We did this last night with Walker Zimmerman, right? We put him as the 3rd center back, and we weather the storm at the top of our box. We just kill the game. Right? We don't give them any. And other teams, if you're, this is what Barcelona was criticized for by not getting to a final. But for 40 plus games throughout the year, how did they kill off the game? They killed off games by having the ball. And I'm not comparing teams, so don't at me about this. My point is there's 2 ways to kill off the game, with the ball and without the ball, right? And some teams do it in different ways. Last night, I think Pochettino saw we're pinned back a little bit. Balls are starting to fly in the box. I'm going to go to 3 center backs right now, and we're gonna kill it off this way. I hope there's a time where we see that, Jimmy, we're going to kill it off the other way. We're going to kill it off death by 1,000 passes. Like, we're going to make the other team chase us, because you know what that feels like too, when you need a goal and you can't get the ball.
I want us to be in charge of games where the crowd's chanting "Ole," because we've done like 25 passes in a row, and everybody's like "Ole, Ole!" Like, I want those moments for our team instead of us having to survive. Now, to Tim Ream's point and his quote, like, there are different ways to win games, and we figured out a way
100%
to make that happen. And we'll get into more of what Tim said after the game, but we're going to take our last break of Call What You Want. We'll get into that. And I threw together a combined 11 for the U.S. and Mexico, and I already know that I'm going to get hammered in the comments, but that's why we're here, to make you guys laugh in the comments. Keep it right here. Don't go anywhere.
The clock never stops. Relive the greatest moments with uninterrupted highlights and more. It's Gareth Bale! Wonderful goal! On the UEFA Champions League channel. Streaming free.
All right, welcome back in to the average goodness of your life. Call it what you want. I'm Jimmy Conrad alongside Tony Meola, and no Charlie Davies, which we're missing. We're missing some of that high emotion from Chuck, who was on it last night. In fairness to him, he was dehydrated. He'd been in the sun for like 10 hours. He looked like a living, breathing red dot, and he hadn't eaten. There was no AC in his house. So we're throwing all these variables to make him more irritable than maybe he usually is. But yeah, Chuck was on it, especially after the game. Anyway,
he's getting redder as we speak.
He was red. He's listening to this
right now he's getting redder out there on the field right now, coaching kids.
That's right. He's doing his camp right now. I forgot that's what he was doing. I assumed he was traveling to one of his timeshares around the world. All right. Well, speaking about after the game, Tim Ream also said this, which I thought was interesting, and I think we should discuss it here with our community. We're on to a final, said Tim Ream, a final that I'd say a month ago, everyone basically counted us out. Shame on them. So for us, it's like, great, amazing. It's knockout football. You find a way to win. You find a way to grind it out. You find a way to do it. And why shouldn't we be happy to go on to a final and play for a trophy? That's why we play this game, to play in front of crowds like this and play for trophies. Tones, your thoughts on that quote from Tim Ream? Feels very pointed.
Yeah.
I think he's talking to you.
Yeah. Okay. If that is the case, then look, in this case, I'd be happy to be wrong, that the U.S. wins a Gold Cup. I think we'd all be, Jimmy. I mean, we know everybody that does our job around, different networks and channels and podcasts and all that stuff. I don't know of a person that's rooting against the U.S., right? But you have a job to make an assessment. And the reality is, coming into this thing, it wasn't bright. It was 4 losses in a row, and 2 of them to Turkey and Switzerland. I don't care who you are, what you think, what you said. They were not good looks. So as a fan, you look onto something to hold on to. And those games were nothing to hold on to. Now, I get the competition is a little bit different, and coming into this, we tempered. I don't think, as this tournament has gone on, one of us has yet picked the U.S. to lose a game in this thing. I correct me. Am I wrong about that? I don't think one of us has picked, as we did previews of the game, as we watched the other teams, as we watched the teams that have grown into the tournament. I don't think anyone has said, "Hey, the U.S. is going to lose." So, with that said, I mean, okay, Tim, I think he's just making a blanket statement in general about people that didn't pick this team. But you need to give people reason to pick your team. And coming into this, there wasn't a lot of reason to pick their team.
Yeah, there's also probably an element of leadership here, where they're trying to build out that us against the world type mentality. We've seen it over and over and over, right? Yeah, that's fine. Actually, I understand where he's coming from, and I can understand him shouldering some of that responsibility as captain to be like, okay, I'll face the music, I'll dab on those haters, as it were, and I clearly the vibe around the team coming into the Gold Cup wasn't good, and it wasn't high, and there was a lot of smoke around the players that weren't involved, and now they're here. They're in the final. However they got there, and now they have a chance, I think, to really shut up, quote unquote, the haters and beat a good Mexico team who has their full squad. And I think that's going to be the ultimate test. So maybe he jumped the gun a little bit. Maybe should have saved these sentiments for after beating Mexico, but
that's fine. No, he's doing what he has to do.
I agree.
He's a leader in this team. He's the captain of his team. He's doing exactly what he has to do.
Yeah. So ultimately, the interesting part, why shouldn't we be happy to go to a final, is an interesting choice of words. Because
anyone not happy that they're going to a final?
I'm buzzing. And in fact, we need to give ourselves some flowers, Big Tones, because in our preview for the Guatemala game, we both said the U.S. would win 2-1. And I'm not saying we're Nostradamuses over here, but we nailed that. We absolutely nailed that. So we're going to carry that momentum into some good vibes going into the final when we ultimately give our predictions for that game. It's happening again on Sunday, a 7 p.m. Eastern kickoff in Houston. That's going to be a lot of fun. And I'm a little jealous for everybody that gets to go, because U.S.-Mexico games are always cracking. Whether you're on the field, whether you're on the sideline, whether you're on the stands, they're the best.
I feel like we should be there doing this.
We should. It's
so much fun.
All right, so let's talk very quickly before we get into my combined 11. Do you think the history plays into this at all? I actually was pretty surprised when I did my research, Big Tones, that we've played Mexico in 7 Gold Cup finals and only won 2 of them. I just thought that number would be a little bit more even. This feels pretty one-sided, that once Mexico gets to the big dance or gets to the big game and they're playing us, they seem to level up their intensity a little bit. Are you as surprised by that as I am?
No, I knew it. I don't think I'm as surprised because I knew it. We did beat them in the semifinal a couple times, including the first edition of this competition.
You were part of that?
Yep, that's right. It was in black and white, Jimmy. There's no video of it. There is actually. It's a pretty good game. Of course you have to take this rivalry. Like, this is the biggest rivalry in CONCACAF. I mean, you can't, nobody can argue that. And it's in a time where there was a period of time where it was dominated by Mexico. Then there was a long period of time in the modern football era that it was dominated by the U.S. It's been a little bit of a roller coaster. But I think if you're a Mexican fan, you probably have run every range of emotion for the last 4 or 5 years with this group, with all the changes and everything that's gone on with the team. And can they dominate? And let's face it, right? Out of all the teams that live in the CONCACAF, of all the countries that live in the CONCACAF region, the U.S. is the one team that they don't want to be inferior to, period. If it were Canada or if it were Costa Rica or maybe Panama now, it would be completely different. It's the U.S. against Mexico. There's so many other things that have happened over the years that there's been things that have strengthened the relationship from a footballing side with Liga MX and MLS, in my opinion. But this rivalry is as big as it gets in the region. And they're in a moment, Jimmy, where they're trying to establish themselves as the best team in the region. They don't care if this is the A team, the B team, the C team. They don't give a rat's you know what about that. They're here to win a final, and that's all they're going to think about. And that's all their fans are going to think about.
Yeah, I don't think Mexico's going to make too many changes to their 11. So there's not much to get into there that we haven't already discussed. What about our 11? We threw up a poll for everybody that's watching on the
No changes.
YouTube channel.
I'm not voting for any changes.
Well, so the lineup change that our audience wanted to see was Damian Downs in for Ajiman. I just don't think we've seen enough of Damian Downs, unless we're seeing something in training or if Ajiman's hurt.
I've said it every game.
Yeah, Ajiman is going to start. So for everybody that wants to see something different, I just don't know where else.
Don't we need goals out of Ajiman? Like
we do.
This is. I think he's got one. Oh, the one he had was the deflected one. No, the Luna goal. Well, it wasn't Luna's goal. Luna cut in. He shot it, hit him in the leg.
Yeah, right.
Against Trinidad,
I
right?
think he got credit for that. Yeah.
Yeah, he did get credit for that one for sure. So
it's not like an out goal that
we need more goals because his game doesn't offer us holding the ball enough, connecting enough to not have goals at the end of it, right? If you're a little bit sloppy and okay, you live with that when you get goals. But he needs to find goals if he's going to continue in that spot.
Okay, so Ajiman, despite people wanting to see Damian Downs in the final, I don't know. You've played 5 straight games with Ajiman up top, or did he?
Oh, I think he's going to start. Yeah,
he's got to start. Yeah, I mean, you're not going to just make that change now. Tyler Adams, maybe if is truly nursing something a little more significant in the hamstring, somebody will come in for him. Johnny Cardoso seems like he's training, but still uncomfortable with his ankle injury. Obviously, he's got some other stuff going on the transfer side, so they might want to be careful with that. I guess the only other one is Tolkien for Arvston. But that seems unlikely at this point, too, given how much trust Pochettino's put in for Arvston.
So, Jimmy, let me ask you this really quick. Who do you think will start just to change? And then who do you want? I think there's 2 different questions, right? Yeah.
At this point, you've built up a rapport with this particular group of players. I think what I think will happen and what I want at this point will probably be the same. If this is who we're going to trust, and this is who we're going to trust. And I wouldn't change anything because there's clearly these guys have now played against Costa Rica, right? Have been kicked together against Costa Rica. They had to solve problems against 2 different teams in Guatemala as well and in Costa Rica. I'd rather see that type of continuity than continue into the final as opposed to maybe risking 3 or 4 changes and being a step off. Unless there's a health concern, then obviously that needs to be taken into consideration. But I wouldn't change anything at this point. And
we do have extra time in this game, right, in the final. So it's not going straight to penalty kicks. So you got to manage that as well, right? Yeah. I would like to see a change up top only because what I told you a couple weeks ago or a couple of shows ago. Sorry. I still think Ajiman is a late game substitution at best at the World Cup. Yeah. I don't see him as a starter. And we have seen him in that role in the Nations League, right? We saw him 1 game in the Nations League. In this tournament, we haven't seen him in that role. I would prefer to see him in that role if that's what we're going to see. And then I'd love to see John Tolkien get the start on the left-hand side because I don't think Arvston, even in the moments that he's gotten forward, his service hasn't been great. We look at the goal he scored in the last game against Costa Rica. Okay, good goal, but I think we need more out of that position. All right. Yeah. We'll be interested to see, but I wouldn't get anybody's hopes up if they want any changes that we're going to get any. No, I don't think there's going to be any. I'm sorry. I should have made that clear. I was going on what you want to see. Got it. No. And yeah, I don't think you're wrong. And wow, this has been a great game. I'm excited. I had to take a brief pause to really soak it all in. U.S.-Mexico in a Gold Cup final. Yes, and please. Okay, as promised, I put together a combined starting 11. Let's see it. Just to get everybody going. I haven't seen it. Here we go. There's going to be probably some questions. It's mixed. I have Matt Freese in goal. I think he's done a little bit more on the work than Maligan has done for Mexico, but they've got 4 clean sheets in a row. That obviously needs to be respected. I just feel like Matt Freese has had to do more work and got himself into the final. Obviously, the penalty shootout heroics play into my emotions here. I put Gallardo on the left. I know he didn't play yesterday against Honduras because of yellow card accumulation, but I like his game. And from a defensive perspective, I got a back 3 here. He's more of a left back. I like him better on the defensive side than I have with Arvston or Tolkien. Cesar Montes got 3 goals. I know he also missed due to yellow card accumulation at some point
or was out with an injury or whatever it may be. But he's got 3 goals. The guy's been an absolute beast on set pieces. I had to throw him in there. Chris Richards would be the lone U.S. defender that I've got in the mix. You got Alvarez and Tyler Adams is the 6s. You got Diego Luna and Tillman, the top of the box, let's say, in midfield. And you got Vega out wide left and Alvarado out wide right for Mexico. Though I do think I'd make that a change there. And then Jimenez up top, which I don't think would be a big surprise. Better than Ajiman. I would say that Alvarado maybe could come out. Tillman could go to the right. And then you could put the 16-year-old Mora in, who I've been really impressed with, though he hasn't played as many minutes as some of these other guys. And Alvarado is a workhorse out on the right side for Mexico. So I don't know where you're at on this, Big Tones. Anybody would want to make some changes. Hit me up in the comments. I'm ready to get annihilated in the comments.
I'm loving that you went with the famous 3-2-4-1 formation.
Listen. Alvarez and Adams can drop in and play in the back. That's like 5 defenders and 5 attacking players. That's kind of how I saw it. So
I'm choking up over here. Let me just ask you this: should you have gone with the normal 4 in the back that both of these teams play? Would you have? Just saying. Would you have put Tim Ream in there?
I mean, he's right there. I mean, given his experience and his passing, yeah, I mean, he's right there.
Yeah, I'm feeling like this whole thing has like the green and white and the yellow has like an Irish B course license feeling to it, and then I'm
Here
getting.
we go.
Yeah, I mean the front 3 for sure. I think you nailed it.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could put Tillman out wide right and you could slide in more, but Luna and Tillman for sure need to be on there, and then Adams I think would be the standout for us in midfield. You can have slight arguments.
2, 4.
Well, you could have.
I'm writing this formation down for the future here.
It's like a 3-2-4-1. Maybe that's only in build out. You could have Vega, or Alvarado could actually drop in a little bit. I mean, I know he plays up top for Chivas, but he plays high. But you could ask Vega and Alvarado to maybe slide into being wing backs if the situation calls for it.
No, it's great, man. It's great.
Benjamin just said I hit everybody with the FIFA formation. Yeah, maybe I did. That's okay. This is all hypothetical anyway, so.
I love it.
Yeah, I guess the big question is a good one here from Dalton. If I had only 1 6, is it Alvarez or Tyler Adams? I mean, Alvarez is excellent. And I think he joins the attack a little bit more than Tyler does and is more of a deep line playmaker. But, dude, Tyler Adams is a dog. He's got that dog in him, And obviously, he hit that banger in the Nations League in Dallas. We were there against Mexico to win that one 2-0 when he was essentially playing on a hobbled leg, because I think he was hurt for another 2 or 3 months after that. But
well, are you gonna whose question was it? Oh, here it is, Dalton. Are you gonna answer Dalton?
My heart says Tyler.
He didn't ask you about your heart. He asked you who you pick.
Well, then I'm going Tyler. That's what I'm going with.
Okay, that's it.
But
That's your answer, Dalton.
I have a lot of respect for Edson Alvarez. I think he's a tremendous player, and we're gonna have to keep an eye on him in this game. But yeah, Tyler Adams, of course, got to go with it.
There you go.
All right, so with prediction time. We want everybody's predictions. Hit us up in the chat right now. What do you think the score is going to be for this final, U.S. versus Mexico in Houston on Sunday, July 6th? Make sure you come back and join us if you want to get a part of this watch along. We'll be kicking it off 3:45 Pacific, 6:45 p.m. Eastern. Give you about 15 minutes of a pregame show. Then we'll watch the game together, and then we'll do our highly emotional, raw emotion. Chuck's going to be off of his rocker postgame show, which are always fun. Your predictions, I see some in the chat right now. I'm seeing a lot of Mexico. But what are you going with, Big Tones?
We're doing predictions today on Thursday when the game's on Sunday.
Yeah, because tomorrow's July 4th, so it's a bit of a holiday weekend. So we gotta get into our predictions.
Hopefully our guys are not celebrating too much on July 4th, which I'm guessing they're not. We know they won't be golfing. Yeah. I do think this game goes to extra time.
I agree.
Yeah, I think this is probably closer. If it goes to extra time, I don't know. I see Mexico as slightly more cohesive with their A team. I think Mexico. I clearly want the U.S. to win, but if I had to bet money on it, I would pick Mexico in extra time.
Okay, I got 1-1. And then the U.S. Matt Freese in pens, baby. Let's go.
You're going to penalty kicks.
I'm going pens. We're going the full
Damn.
distance, and Matt Freese is going to be the hero once again to cement his status as a real threat and candidate to be our number one moving forward into the World Cup next summer. I'm trying to manifest that destiny. Please allow
Who
it
gets
to
a goal
happen.
for us? Who gets a goal for us? I have a choice here.
Well, just to kill all the haters, Patrick Ajiman will score. I like Tillman. I think Blake Tillman's going to score on this one.
I was thinking Richards. I don't know. I just
On a
think
set piece?
restarts or start set pieces.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just Chris Richards.
Yeah, I'm going to go Tillman. I think that he was a little quieter in the Guatemala game. I think he's going to be a little bit more vibrant, let's say, in this one against Mexico. And we need him to be vibrant. We need the best Malik Tillman that we could possibly get to really get after it. All right, that's it. I'm calling it a show. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. Again, come hang out with us on Sunday for the watch along at the Glosso America YouTube channel. Hit like and subscribe, turn on notifications. Don't miss anything. We appreciate you, and I cannot wait for this game. U.S. versus Mexico Gold Cup final. Inject it straight into my veins, and we'll see you on Sunday. Thanks for hanging out with us. Later.